Hey, welcome back to the VET S.O.S podcast brought to you by the Who You Know Network. We are a proud member of the Parade Deck community. Remember, don't drown to see a transition. Grab the VET S.O.S Lifeline. Today, we have the one and only, the amazing Nila Thompson with us. Nila has been a pillar of the transition community for a long time, currently serving as the Chief of Staff of Talents Ascend. Can't wait to get into this conversation with her. Always enjoy talking with Nila, so this is going to be great. Today, I'm here with a special co-host. We got Keith Cassant here, the one and only Band-Aid ripper of transition. He's sitting in for Eric, who's out on an important mission this week. He's already been a two-time guest, so that he's not scared. He's ready to jump into this, which is going to be great. Keith, how you doing today?
I'm living the dream, brother. It's an honor to be here, and I really appreciate being able to fill in for Eric. So.
Absolutely. So we're so happy to have you here. This is going to be a lot of fun. So we're going to jump right into it here. So Nila is Chief of Staff for Talents Ascend. She is a veteran spouse, former civilian readiness officer for the Marine Corps, and ultimate connector of people, which I can vouch for. She definitely is that. Nila has over 15 years of military and veteran family advocacy experience, which includes her time aboard Camp Pendleton as an FRO, VFW headquarters, unmet needs coordinator, and numerous other nonprofits, all advocating for our military veteran spouses and families. Nila, I am so happy you're here today. How are you doing?
I'm excellent. I couldn't be in better company today. So thank you both for having me on. And, you know, while we miss Eric, I'm so glad to share the room with Keith, our Band-Aid ripper here. This is going to be an awesome day.
Absolutely. All right, so I'm really looking forward to this first question. All right, so I want to hear your transition story from the point of view of the military spouse and military mother. You know, so your children had to go through this transition process as well. So, you know, let's jump right into this here and tell us a little bit about your experience there going through the transition as Bruce went through the transition.
You know, and we share our story because we want to make sure others have a better experience. Bruce didn't even know he was ready to take his pack off. He had gone through a lot of changes after deployments. He came back very different. And I'm sure other military spouses can vouch for that. Every deployment, it's a new person that comes home. Yeah. But the last person that came home was very challenging. And he didn't even realize it. And I had to sit him down and have that conversation with him. And I'm lucky that we've known each other, for 34 years. We've been best friends for 34 years. We're going on 21 years of marriage. So when I sit down and have a conversation, he listens. You know, I'm his person. Awesome. And not all spouses have that. Service members need to listen to that person because we are with you. We're here to support and build you up. And so those conversations are important. It's important to hear each other. So we set a date. We looked at finances. We looked at when the kids were going to be getting ready to do their own transition. And we set a date for his retirement. It was not easy, him going through all of the processes of mental health, of all his surgeries, because we know we hide our injuries. You know, we tough it up. That's what the Marine Corps teaches. You know, you don't really need to go. But when you're getting ready to transition, it's so important to be honest about what hurts. And he ended up having surgery after surgery after surgery.
Wow.
So it was a long process in that aspect as well. But being on the same team, making a decision on where we were going to live, what civilian life was going to look like, and being a team on that supported our transition.
Absolutely.
Now you don't know what you don't know. You know, we all say that. And he transitioned into this beautiful job that paid a lot of money that he hated. And he was going to stick it out. He was miserable. He was working a night shift. We never saw each other. And he was absolutely miserable. And I told him something I think he needed to hear is that he didn't have to stay in that role. that, you know, we set ourselves up financially to be able to, you know, just transition without him having to jump into a role. And
That's
he
huge.
needed that permission to leave that first job just to find something that he was passionate about. But he left that first job and he kind of sat and laid on the couch for a while, and he became best friends with my dog, who was no longer my dog. And so I had to kick his butt again and be like, no, go out and do something. Go figure out what you want to do and go do it. Sitting on the couch wasting away is not going to be the answer. So he did. But again, spouses have to have those hard conversations. They can't pull any punches. They've got to rip the Band-Aid off. They have to say, this is how it's going to work. We are, as military spouses, we're transition experts. Every single PCS, we've had to transition. And that is something that service members don't always take into consideration, is we've done this before. So listen, it's okay to fall and trip, but listen to us when we try and guide you and give you support on that. But when it comes to the military family, something that I wasn't expecting, so our daughter decided that she was going to go to, we encouraged her to go to Hawaii for her bachelor's and learn some new skills. And that's where she got into diving. What I wasn't expecting was when she aged out of being a military child. And that means aging out means you lose your ID, you lose access to base, you lose all of those benefits. What have we taught those individuals born into this? We've taught them their entire life that this is where you go for family support. This is where you go for educational support. This is where you go, you know, when you need to shop for food. You know, we've built them up into this military lifestyle. And then in one day, that door is shut and they have absolutely no resources. And we've kind of left them out in the cold. And we need to reconsider that. There are services, I think, that are underutilized on bases that could probably be utilized by our military children. You know, aging out, if you're in college, it's, I believe, 21. And then if you're not in college, it's 18. But think of all the resources that get underutilized that could benefit the base, because underutilized programs go away.
Yeah.
But if we have individuals using those, you know, they maintain the funding for that. So let's take care of the military child as they grow and transition into new roles in our civilian world, or a lot of them end up joining the military themselves. But we need to focus more on advocating for them, so we don't just shut the door on them and leave them to fend for themselves. That was a big surprise, and she and I have had a lot of conversations about it, on how she felt about, you know, having all that support and then just not having anything and having to figure it all out, along with figuring out how to be an adult. You know, so it's like a veteran transition, but it's the military child transition. And so we need more discussions on that. We need to talk more about that.
Completely agree with you there. And the first thing that popped in my head when we were talking about underutilized was, you know, I bet you there's recruiters out there going, hey, we're underutilized right now. Send them over to us.
Right.
But no, it's 100% spot on. And so my son, you know, is on the spectrum. And one of the things that we always did once we learned these things was about a year out, we'd start prepping them for PCS and what have you. And we did the same thing with retirement, because not only was I retiring, he was also graduating high school. He was getting ready to go to school. So that he had all these things going on in his world, you know, and trying to help him get that, plus making him go get a driver's license. For some reason, 18-year-old kid didn't want a license. I don't understand that, but you know, telling him that I wasn't going to be dropping him off at college every day, you know, so he had to go get a license. But so those things, and having those conversations, I think is huge and absolutely spot on. I think about the resources on base. That's definitely got to make use of that.
And she was very independent too. It's not like she depended on me. I mean, she moved to an island by herself where she knew absolutely no one. So she's very independent. But it did come as a surprise on that day when she had to go to a regular grocery store.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's so much I want to unpack with everything you just said, but I'm going to try not to, because I know there's other topics to be discussed. But the one thing I would say, first of all, I can relate, right? So I retired about 4.5 years ago. My oldest was retiring as I was, he was graduating as I was retiring. He ended up actually going into the Army as I was coming out. We had like a 1 month overlap. Second oldest went Coast Guard. So I see, the children joining the military. But on top of that, my third youngest, though, he decided he'd go on the college route. And that transition was just a total 180 compared to what our other children experienced. So, yeah. So with that said, like what a lot of people watching this might be like, well, this is great advice. Like what is out there? Like what programs might you throw out there for our listeners and watchers that, like just some of the programs that they might be able to take advantage of?
And a lot of the military children have to utilize civilian programs. So there's not a lot. And that's advocacy is about giving a voice to a group of people that aren't heard. And this is what we need to do more of, see what we can open up, because there aren't a lot of resources. Thankfully, she was at a college at the time, so there were resources on the college that she could utilize. She had to adjust to using civilian everything resources. And luckily she also, as I mentioned, she fell into diving, and that has its own community as well. So she was able to really tap into that network, and they supported her and brought her in. So she works with amazing organization. She works for Trident Adventures remotely right now. So
how can you do that remotely?
She is actually their social media manager.
Oh, okay.
So she had to move back to she had to move back to the States, and Steve Kaplan said, "Look, we want to keep you on. Let's figure out what we can do to make that happen." And so she was able to take on their social media and works with them from Florida.
Nice.
Where hopefully they'll open some new chapters.
That's awesome. And I wanted to ask too, if I could, one more other question. So, because you mentioned the finance thing earlier on, and that I think that is so huge for service members and family members. Yes. And tying that in, because we're in the month of the military child. What advice would you give to parents on how they might even help better educate and inform their children financially? Like, hey, because a lot of timing lines up that way. Service members getting out as the child is likely in high school and about to graduate or just graduating. What sort of advice would you give to those folks?
There's a lot of things that we all want, but it's important to understand that we have to work for it, and we have to teach our children those habits. Like we were parents that if she wanted a car, she was going to pay for it. She was going to pay for for her insurance, anything related to it. It was important to learn those lessons early on, learn about saving, because as they grow into adults, this is what's going to carry them. So we don't have to support them fully in case we're unable to. As far as the military transition, it's important to, we went debt free before he even retired. That was the goal. We were going to we were going to sink everything into debt we owed and get everything paid off. And that way, when we were free and clear by the time he retired. And that way, with her move, if there was anything that we had to support her with, which she paid for. She paid for her move. She paid for her everything associated with being in college. She was able. We set a rule up for our kids that she has the GI Bill. she was not allowed to use it for her associates. We wanted them to understand what it was like to pay for college, and she had to pay for it. So until she finished her associates, she couldn't use the GI Bill. And that's one of the reasons that we encouraged her when she was talking about the field she wanted to be in. And we said, go to Hawaii. One, you've always wanted to live there. And two, you can now use the GI Bill, which will provide you BAH, and it'll help support you with that. So she was able to carry out a dream because of her discipline. So don't hand everything to your kids. Teach them to be self-reliant.
That's it. 14-year-olds cut off as of today. Cutting them off. Man, along those lines, there's tons of financial organizations out there, and everybody has their preference, whatever. Myself, we went with First Command. We've been with them for 18 years. But one of the things we were fortunate enough to do was we bought life insurance on both of the whole life on both of the kids. And so one of the things we did here about 2 months ago was go down to First Command and sign that policy over to my oldest. So now he owns the policy, and as long as he makes, I'm still making the payments for right now, but as long as he makes the payments and then each of those steps, by the time he's 49, he's going to have over $500,000 in insurance. And I'm like, it's one of those things where we made a decision early that we didn't really understand the impacts of down the road. And now it's like, well, great. We're giving him something that, is going to be really beneficial to him and his family down the road. So, making those choices and coming out debt free. Oh my God. The number of times that I've listened to people talk about the debt they're coming out with, and we were pretty much debt free as well, but we also knew we were buying a house and all that stuff. So, unfortunately we bought it in this market. So I paid a little bit more than I wanted to, but it's all good. So, but no, it's just, coming out debt free. I don't think that can be emphasized enough, because that makes a world of difference if you're not worried about that.
Yeah.
And I think self-discipline is so important when it comes to finances. Why do we get into so much debt? Because we see something pretty that our neighbor has, and now we have to have it. Do we really have to have it? I still drive a vehicle that's 23 years old because, one, it works. I've taken really good care of it. And there's nicer stuff out there, but I don't need the nicer stuff because what I have is sufficient for my lifestyle. You don't always have to jump on the new phones. You don't always have to jump on the new vehicles. Take a look at your debt. What can you actually afford? And still have a life, and not just work to pay the debt.
Yeah, that's huge. And I don't know what brand of car you got, but that's impressive.
I have a Ford Windstar.
Really?
Nice.
Yeah, and we recently just donated our Kia, which was still a great car, but we wanted to give it to a veteran who could use it more than we did. So take care of your stuff, and you'll have less debt.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
If I get my 14-year-old to understand that part. So let's jump into Talents Ascend a little bit. So, we've had Robin on here, and she talked about the organization and what you guys are doing. But this is one of those things that I know personally I'm just fascinated with. I don't like resumes. Probably because I don't understand them that well, and I've never really written a good one. But I love the idea of skills-based, because I think this just speaks to the military. Because it trying to put on one sheet of paper everything you did in a 20-year career is something you really can't do, right? So you got to pick and choose what you got to put on there and all the important things. So let's talk a little bit about Talents Ascend and the great things you guys got going on.
Well, let me first start off with a little history lesson. The resume was first created in 1482 by Leonardo da Vinci, who was trying to work with the Duke of Milan. And he crafted this document that outlined his skills, his past history, what he had already done in order to send it over to the Duke. And that was the very first resume created.
So you said 1492?
1482. Think how old that is, okay? Do some math on that. That's 452 years old.
That's 10 years before Columbus sailed to America, right? He was 1492, if I remember correctly.
And so that is how old that process is. Think of all the things that we've come up with since then. You know, we have the internet, electricity. We have all of these great inventions, things that have transitioned to better versions of themselves, but we've never really updated the process of the resume. We've added applicant tracking systems to them. So now we teach people how to manipulate applicant tracking systems. Talents Ascent actually lets a person be who they are instead of reforming themselves, remolding themselves into someone else's box. We say, build your own box. Put in the skills that you have and you want to use in the important thing, you want to use in your next career. We all have skills that we don't want to use. I could be a door greeter at a local retail store. I could be a cashier. I could be a forklift driver. But I don't want to do any of those things. So the skills you want to use in your next role, what's going to make you happy? What skills are going to make you happy in your next role? And then Talents Ascend uses your profile and it matches it to profiles of employers in our system and makes that connection, the ultimate connector. So it makes that connection so we can connect you directly to hiring managers who can decide if you're right for that role and hire you directly.
That's awesome.
A lot of people say they do this. They don't do it like we do. We don't scrape jobs off the internet. We're not saying, here's a role for you, go apply to it, go send them your resume. We don't do any of that. No one's doing what we're doing right now. Keith, you were going to say something.
Yeah, and I was just going to curious. So I'm not a hiring manager. I'm not even technically a recruiter, but I'm a veterans program manager for a federal agency. And so veteran employment is what I live and breathe for the most part. And also I was just curious from the employer side of the house, do you just ask the employer what skills they're looking for? Like, I love the way you're getting these skills from the service members, like forming what they've done. Do you just get a list from the company, or do you even work with the company like to maybe think outside the box on what skills they might be looking for?
So not only have we built our own military library for all the military occupations and a civilian library for civilian occupations, we've built a library for our employers as well. And we're always improving that library. We have a concierge acquisition manager that works directly with our employers to look over what skills they actually need for this role. And if it's not already in the system, we add it to the system, and they can turn, just like a candidate can turn that profile on and off, they can turn that career on and off. And that way, if that role becomes available again, we can just turn it on and say, we're looking again for this same role. Think of all the time that saves. And we all know in business, time is money, right? Yeah. So all that time, all they have to do is tell our CAM, hey, we're hiring for this again. Although I have to say, we have highly efficient CAMs that will actually, they spend X amount of time per week on each of our businesses, and they actually will go to their website to see if there's any changes on some of their positions, and then reach out to them and say, hey, did you want me to add this to the system? So we make sure that we're taking the best care of our employers, because not only are we trying to do what's right by our candidates, we've got to take care of those employers too. That relationship between the three of us has got to be spot on.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So you got Talents Ascend, and then there's Veterans Ascend. So what's the difference there? How's that work out?
So Talents Ascend is the platform and the business side of the house. And we also have the Ascend Collective, which is our nonprofit division. Within that is our underserved communities. And that includes Veterans Ascend, Ability Ascend, and Mission to Ascend. Veteran Ascend is for our military and veteran families. Ability Ascend is for people with disabilities. And then Mission to Ascend is for people who have been previously incarcerated and are looking to improve their life. And all three of those divisions work with those individuals to get them career ready through resources and connections. So we really were, our team, who is made up of all veterans and military spouses, we all have some sort of connection to each of those communities. And so it matters to us that they're successful.
That's so, known you personally, I've known you for what, about 6 months. But we've been connected on LinkedIn. We've had conversations. And I think I've learned more today, just sitting here talking with you. Like the whole resume thing is mind blowing to me. That old saying, better than sliced bread or whatever it is. It's like literally we've had sliced bread since the resume was created, which really, really is crazy to me. But I didn't know about that piece, the jail piece, with the
Mission
program.
to Ascend.
Mission to Ascend.
Mission to Ascend is our latest division too. So we're really proud of the Ascend Collective and everything that it's trying to do. Yeah. Because when you empower the people in your community, it's a stronger community.
Right. And so like with Operation Barnabas, we're working with the local jails to run programs in jail as well. And I think, that could be an added thing that we could potentially use there. I mean, obviously they can use the Veterans Ascend. But, I think, there's a good tie there. So I'm going to have to, you and I are going to have to talk a little bit more about that one. I think there definitely could be, in there with like programs like Operation Barnabas. But
absolutely.
So
go ahead.
Well, I was going to say bad news is we're coming down to the end. This is
how did that happen?
I'm telling you, these go quick. Especially, one of the things I love about this is the people they come on the show are passionate about, what they're doing. And so it goes by so fast because you're just so into it. It's good and bad. We pack a lot of stuff in 30 minutes and then, you come out of it going, man, we could talk for another 3 hours.
Yeah.
So
I'll say I need to connect with you too from my role. So we're going to be connecting for sure for my agency because I'm highly interested in what I've learned today. I had no idea of the organization and this is all amazing stuff. So you'll be hearing.
Well, you know where to find me.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you don't have to go to Vegas. I'm just saying. I had to get the dig in on air.
I mean, you can meet me at Mick in Atlanta this year, but
there you go.
Trying to go.
Absolutely. So where's the best place? I'm going to turn it over to Keith here to take us out, but where's the best place for audience to connect with you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Nila Thompson. You can see the link scrolling on the bottom. If you want to learn more about Talents Ascend, you can just go to talentsascend.com. And it also has a link to the Ascend Collective. The Ascend Collective also has a website, theascendcollective.org. Easy to find us. Both our websites connect to each other. So if you find one, you'll find the other.
And I'll testify that it's easy to do a profile. I have a profile on Veterans Ascend. It's not hard to do, I highly encourage all service members, but definitely transitioning service members to get out there and do it. Thank you so much, Nila. I'm going to turn it over to you, Keith, to take us out.
All right. Well, Nila, it was an absolute pleasure having you on, especially for me being my first time co-host. You made it easy on me. I really appreciate that. And On behalf of all of the VET S.O.S family, we'd like to just thank everyone for joining us today. Please be sure to follow us and subscribe to us on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms. And we love dogs. It's all inclusive. So, and then remember, don't drown in the sea of transition. Grab the VET S.O.S Lifeline. Thank you so much.